Hello fellow duelists and collectors. Today I'll be showcasing my Lightsworn deck, which has always been a favorite of mine, and I primarily built this deck out of 3 of the Lightsworn structure decks that came out back in the day, and then I've just added to it over the years, so I'll get right into it. First, we have the main important card, 3 Judgment Dragons. The power card with 3000 attack. It also has the effect of destroying every card on the field for paying 1000 life points, and it mills 4 cards at the end phase. Extremely essential for any Lightsworn deck. 3 Wolf, also I would say just as essential for a Lightsworn deck. If it gets sent to the deck from the deck to the grave, it is automatically special summoned. It can't be normal summoned. So that's pretty good. I use 3 Garroths because the draw power you can get off of him is insane. He really can be super helpful if your field has a lot of milling going on. And so that's why I use 3 of him. Like for example with Raiden, who can mill 2 cards 2 times per turn. That gives you 2 extra effects of his. So like his effect activates, end phase, his effect activates. So that gives you even more chances to draw, which is beautiful. And he's also really good because he's a tuner. So that's why I run 3 copies of him. Although I sort of play around with 3 copies of him or 3 copies of Lila, because Lila has the effect of destroying opponent's spell or traps, which can be insanely useful. It really comes in handy sometimes, and mills 3 at the end phase, pretty good. Also, if you switch it to defense for the destruction of the card, then you also can use it for an Ixie or Synchro summon, which can be super helpful, or Link nowadays, huh? And then Erin, because she doesn't destroy monsters, she returns them to the deck instead, which can be very useful in certain situations. I only use 1 Felis because it can only be summoned if it's sent from the deck to the grave by a monster effect, so that's a fairly rare instance. You can't use Foolish Burial on it, and if you draw into it, you have to essentially send it to the grave because it's a dead card. But you can use it to destroy cards, so that can be helpful. And, you know, it's a tuner, so that's also helpful. Then we have 2 Honests. Honest is definitely an essential card because your opponent will fear Honest. If you have it in your hand and then use it, then your opponent's going to be like, oh shit, I didn't know that was in there, and or I didn't expect that right now. So then it just sort of makes them second guess a lot of your things. Lumina, I still think is very good. Send a card to the grave, then choose a Lightsworn in the grave to summon, so you could actually get something back before there's anything in the grave, which can be super helpful. And then there is Minerva. I only use 2 because I mean, she's good. She's a tuner 3-star, and if she's sent from the deck to the grave, you send an extra card, which can be useful. But I don't think she's good enough to run at 3. She does have the first effect where you can add like JD to your hand if you have enough different named Lightsworns in your grave, which is fairly rare, but can be useful. But I honestly don't see myself using it hardly ever. And then there are 3 Necrogardna because bigger defense, better strategy of protection. There's a lot of protection in this deck, and I think that's very essential because it could get milled. It could be something that you discard for a card effect, or it just can be very helpful in a lot of protective strategies. 3 Charge with Light Brigade for the draw power and mill power, very standard in a Lightsworn deck. Same with Solar Recharge, draw and mill power, very helpful. And I also use 3 MSTs because I don't have Twin Twister, but I also think that you don't really need Twin Twister because there is no cost for these, honestly, and they are a quick play, so you can use them during your opponent's turn, along with sometimes your opponent you'll get lucky enough, or you'll choose the right card to destroy based on your opponent's basically poker style of playing. You read them. You have to be smart about that. 2 Monster Reincarnation, mainly for Judgment, but you could also bring back Lumina or Lila or anything you need basically to get past your opponent's strategy. I think it's a very essential card in the deck. Soul Charge, very standard, but also in this deck can be very helpful depending on what's in your grave, since there's usually a lot. And then Foolish Burial, also very standard, especially for Lightsworn decks, because you could send Wolf, or you could send anything in the grave that you need to like maybe summon Judgment or bring back with Lumina. It has multiple effects. Forbidden Chalice, I think, is actually gotten to be more underrated nowadays because it can negate a monster's effect and it's a quick play spell, so it's very helpful. And it can also increase your monster's attack power if you need an extra 400 point boost, so that's awesome, I think, so I run it. And then Lightsworn Judgment, which if it's milled, I only run 1 because I don't think 3 is necessary, especially if you accidentally mill Judgment into the grave. So 1 I think is fair. If it's milled from the deck to the grave, it's placed on the top of the deck, and if you activate it, you get to add Judgment from your deck to your hand, which is just pretty awesome. Now going into the extra deck, I have 2 Curious because, you know, it's nice to have her secondary effects, which I actually kind of forgot her effect. I'll have to read it. Right, if it's destroyed by battle, leaves a field because an opponent's card, you can target a card in your graveyard, add to your hand, usually like Judgment, which is beautiful. And then for the 2 once per turn effects, and if it's Link Summon, you can send a card from your deck to the grave, which is awesome. And then if it's sent from the deck to the grave by a card effect, then send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave, which is like not often, but very helpful too. Violent Sigma, very good. Like, it doesn't destroy an opponent's monster again, so if you need to get over some power beater, you can use him to equip it to himself, and then that monster is just taken off your opponent's field, which can be super helpful. Number 102, Seraph Sentry, is vitally important, I think, to this deck, actually. The other duel I was having recently, I used it to get over a monster that actually had the same attack, but it also negates the effect, and it can be prevented. It can prevent its own destruction by detaching an Ixie material, which makes it even harder to get through. So it's very helpful, especially since it uses 3 materials. I actually think Zubaba General is very helpful in this deck also because, like, Garoth being a warrior, it can just be a big attack boost. You know, like, it gets to 3850 in the right situation, and so, like, I was facing a Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon with 3500 attack, and I was like, how am I going to get over this? And Zubaba General actually did it for me after I used an MST on their back row, which was super helpful. Minerva is awesome because she lets you draw for her first effect and then destroy for her second effect, and both involve milling, so it's like very standard essential card for Lightsworns nowadays. My 3-star, or rank 3, sorry, is Acid Golem of Destruction because it's a beater, it's good for being a beater, and also, honestly, my other better 3 stars are in other decks, so I couldn't really afford to put anything else in this deck right now. I'll probably get something new sometime to replace it, but for now, it's just my fill-in, essentially. And then I have the Dragon Archfiend trio, the Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, and Red Dragon Archfiend, for just destroying your opponent's monsters left and right, however you can. Stardust for your own protection, very standard. Michael, because that 1000-point banish can be so helpful. Also, you know, it's a Lightsworn and it can send cards from the deck to the grave, so it comes in handy a lot more than I expected when I originally got it. And then Goyo Guardian for the 6-star. Great 6-star. Glad it's back in the game. And I think it runs really well in the deck, honestly. Like, it's got that attack point power. It takes your opponent's monsters. It can be very helpful in a lot of situations. That is going to do it for this deck profile, you guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give me a like. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. I'll be uploading them soon. Thank you.